Yeah, I lived in Buffalo for a while, but I didn't get too far. I didn't get east too often. A couple times to
Oh no.
Rochester, but
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff in upstate New York.
a lot of wineries.
How many times
Yeah.
did you say? How many times did you say Buffalo, 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 Buffalo?
Don't you guys have Rochester over there too?
Yeah, Rochester's over towards here as well. But we're like,
No, I mean in England. Don't you have a Rochester?
oh yes,
Yeah, we think we have.
yeah, we
Rochester,
have. They have.
maybe.
You have all our things. You have a Binghamton.
What do you mean your things?
We have all your things.
Your things.
Pronounce it Binghamton.
Anyway, welcome to Star Trek Trek. This is our review of
West
Yesteryear.
Chesterton, Fieldville, Iowa.
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire, Wymondham. Yes, this is our review of all the English towns in England. No, this is. Our
I really
review-
don't think they have any like to stand on when Arkansas is said as Arkansas, despite there not being a W in that fucking word.
Illinois.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome to Town Trek.
Tell you what, I'm a bit Illinois right now. Hey, anyway, welcome to our
Look. Code of Honor gets a lot of flack, but
Okay.
you can't
Oh,
deny
geez.
that it has one of the best cliffhangers in all of Trek. When Riker orders Geordi to fire on Locutus, knowing he could very well be killing his friend and captain, and then
You
the
are
music
so
hits,
salty you missed this episode.
everyone remembers that. It's one of the great cliffhangers in all of Star Trek.
Yeah.
You can't deny it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but what about Code of Honor?
But
Hey.
all right, no, seriously,
That's the bit.
that's the whole bit.
That's a joke.
There's something good in all of Trek, except for Discovery. And the one thing that, well, it didn't stick with me. It wasn't that good. But when Data brings up Counting Coup and the historical comparison, like Trek is always good for the callback to present day or whatnot. So I did at least like that. That's the one good thing I can say about.
If you were to give it a
About
rating out
Code
of
of
10,
Honor.
however.
I don't
might
know.
be
I
able
haven't
to bring
seen
up
it
the average.
recently. How many
thought it was
Akita
your favorite.
vanishes out of 10? What did you guys use?
Go on, Steph.
Obscure French, obscure dead ancient
Oh, right.
English language is called French. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I put a lot of modifiers and synonyms of old and ancient.
Absolutely.
All right, Yesteryear.
Yesteryear. So this was episode 2 of TAS, and often regarded as one of the more popular episodes, the one that's sort of generally on most people's essential to watch list. This was directed, as all episodes of TAS in season 1 are, by Hal Sutherland, and written by none other, she needs no introduction, DC Fontana. And this is the only episode she wrote for TAS, but yeah, this was a really good one. Those guys, just as an opening.
This
Yeah,
doesn't feel like a kid's show.
No.
I mean, I guess TS kind of isn't a kid's show because it is kind of an official sequel to TOS, but this is especially not a kid's show. Like, I've only ever seen one other episode of TAS, and that could have easily been a Hanna-Barbera slapstick bullshit thing with the slaver weapon. It's like very, oh, look, kids, you can enjoy this, but this is deep, and it goes a little bit dark and a little bit rough and way more mature than I was expecting.
No, it's like Sesame Street. You have to teach kids how to deal with death, right? Like when Mr. Hoover died on Sesame Street, they just didn't recast the role. They didn't like jump around it. They addressed it head on. But yeah, this is a great episode. It's a great thing for Robert Zemeckis to rip off for Back to the Future. And
When was Back to the Future? That was 80 something, wasn't it?
85.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say. The other way around. What was else we've noticed this ripped off of?
Endgame.
Oh, that's right.
The
All
other one.
all roads lead to Star Trek.
Absolutely.
That's true.
It's kind of the fiction.
It wasn't meant to be a kid's show, though. That's the thing. Like, people think
Yeah.
animation, especially in that era, they
Yeah.
think, oh, yeah, it's going to be a kid's show. And it really wasn't meant to be. Like, there's some zany stuff in there, especially
The
considering
inflatable Enterprise.
they realize what they can get away with animation, so that's part of it. But, yeah, it was never really meant to. Like, you're sitting there's some dense, chewy dialogue there, and you're just chewing on it, and, like, they're introducing all these concepts. They could have stopped at the concept of time travel and multiple parallel universes. That would have been enough for kids to try to tackle, but then they throw in like death and family and all this stuff. So yeah,
Like, very casually, we've got the Guardian of Forever there. Just sitting there, just kind of going,
Well-
just use me, please. Stop hurting me.
just so you know, The episode was nominated for a Daytime Emmy Award in the category of Outstanding Entertainment Children's Series.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that sounds like it might be an antique of back. I like what it says, all animation being considered animation.
Right.
But to be fair, like I don't know, it's a weird classification because it is absolutely a sequel to TOS. The fact that they don't even really introduce the Guardian of Forever, it's really absolutely meant to be. No, you know what the deal is. You recognize what that weird little donut hole with a donut
Giorgio,
hole. Giorgio,
enter me.
Hi, Carl.
Yeah, no, Carl's doing all right. Carl's having a good time. He sounds a little bit wispy nowadays, but you know.
I mean, what about the fact that they've just, Alik the giant yellow bird, is just hanging out, and no mention of what he's there for or any backstory. Just this
No
bird man with a
uniform
tricorder.
is egregious. Put a com badge on that bird.
Yes.
How about some
Showing out
pants?
uniform.
I'll settle for that. Although pants has that weird thing of if you put pants on Ariku, he looks more
Then
naked.
he's just topless.
Because it's like like with Sonic the Hedgehog, right? The fact that he wears gloves and shoes indicates that he's not wearing otherwise clothes. So it's the same with Ariku. If you put a single bit of clothing on him, you're like, well, now you're admitting that he has things that need to be covered up.
yeah, he's like Chewbacca. You can have a bandolier or a tricorder across your chest.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. Like otherwise,
That's not you're allowed.
it's
Someone should
problematic.
have told Worf. Someone should have told Worf that. All you need to do is show up in your ball trick.
Straight in your border, Commander.
On screen.
You're presenting. So, some fun facts for you about this episode. Did you know
I love fun
that
facts.
Young Spock was actually considered to be included?
It's
as
another
a regular...
NBC show, isn't it? Young
Yeah.
Spock.
Yeah,
Young Spock.
Yes.
That's kind of changed your world.
Yeah, a little bit. He was going to be considered to be a regular character through TAS, but I think he only ended in this series, and thank God, because I don't know how much I could stand of that small child reading off a piece of paper in the worst way.
Can you look up, was that an actual child? Because it sounded like an
That
actual
was an
child.
actual
I
child.
got
Yeah.
a distinct...
Jimmy something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Do it.
got a distinct odor of like Jake Lloyd out of that.
Yeah, no, he was terrible.
Are you an angel?
He's on with Jake Lloyd.
It's just Jimmy doing like underneath the mic, so he sounds younger.
Just someone squeezing
They
his
just
legs
took a hit
together.
of helium. That's all it took.
Okay, here's a really, really tough game, which Auto might know because he's read the
More
memory
fun
alpha
facts.
page. More fun facts, but only because you read the memory alpha page. But what is the link between Janis Joplin and this episode?
Sucker vines.
It's not Sucker Vines.
Oh,
Oh, no.
did she play the little guitar riffs, whammy guitar riffs that we would hear every once in a while
No, but
in
that
the
wouldn't
episode?
surprise me. Yeah, the random little.
All right, they're never getting it, so
No,
I'll
they
buzz
won't.
in.
You buzz in.
DC, yeah, the sell it, Ichaya, which they call Ichai in the show, but Fontana was not a fan because it sounded too un-Vulcan. Ichaya sounded more
I
You
would tend
know.
to agree with her. Yeah.
elven, I guess. Yeah, the link is she modeled Ichaya after her cat, who was named after one of Janis Joplin's songs.
Bobby McGee.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, a loose link, but yeah, that was how Janis Joplin. You can, if you're going to play one of those association games, that's how you can link Janis Joplin to Star Trek now. So yeah, there you go. You ever get caught in a quiz, like 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but with DC Fontana, which probably exists. Okay, how about best and worst?
We
go
need
on.
a whole stream, just like 7 Degrees of from Trek stuff. We'll have people submit like names and places and stuff,
Yeah.
and we'll work it out.
Yeah, that'd be
that's
fun.
a good
Actually,
one. I
that'd
like
be fun.
that. That's pretty cool.
Let's also have a show with just fake Trek trivia. Like Janis Joplin was in Way to Eden. She was one of the hippies in Way to Eden.
Like 2 real ones
No,
and a
like-
fake one, and you got to figure out
make
which
it
one.
make it that. Yeah, yeah. It's like that. You're familiar with the panel show. Would I lie to you?
Yes.
And then it's like
Yeah.
with like celebrities reading off certain facts, you have to work out whether or not you think it's true or not. Do that
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Star Trek
let's do
trivia.
that.
That'd be great. Yeah.
all right. No,
Anyway,
before we go into the show
Yesteryear.
meeting,
But
best-
don't watch Trek. That's the cast-off show now.
Best or worst moments, please. And let's start round the room with the rule. Let's start with Shy today. Best and worst moments.
I noticed early on in the episode when Spock first appears and everyone's sort of questioning, like, who's that? I liked McCoy's kind of quiet response, like, no, sir, I'm afraid I don't recognize. It's like
In this
it's like,
alternate
McCoy,
timeline,
you know
McCoy
him.
is so much less
You know,
racist.
Yeah, well, because he doesn't have that existing relationship to Spock, right, where they're antagonizing each other. So he's actually just very gentlemanly and polite. He's like, no, I'm afraid I don't know this gentleman.
You know,
Stars
in
is
that
over here
timeline,
victim
he didn't
blaming.
slap that woman.
Yeah, and then when he shows up,
in front of his child.
yeah, when he shows up at the end of the episode, like McCoy is then once again really surly immediately with Spock, and you that's how you know everything's all right. So I actually like that little character choice at the beginning and the end.
And the worst.
Yeah, well,
the worst.
Yeah.
Got to give us both in one go.
Yeah, go on.
I don't like them killing off his pet. It's just cruel. Now Spock has to live with the memory. At least Spock maintains the memory of his seal out, right?
Twice.
But
Yeah, to watch it
That
twice.
is at least something, yeah.
Yeah, we always
Yeah.
talk about like the kid going through it, but us as adults, would you want to go back to the moment your favorite pet died and watch that again? Like that would tear me up big time.
Yeah, not
Like
really.
that's rough for both Spock.
well, he didn't die the first time. That was the point. Like he was like, this didn't happen the first time. Now I'm getting to
Oh,
watch
yeah?
my childhood pet that
Yeah.
meant
I
a
was
lot to
watching
me.
the episode.
If I was Spock, I would give those Federation historians that put him in this position the fucking biggest wet willy they've ever known.
That's right. Next time when I say I don't want to go on the
Killing my
Orion
pet
mission.
assholes.
Exactly.
All right, Stars, how about you?
Best moment. I have to admit, it's any moment that Mark Leonard is speaking.
Yeah.
The man is just a consummate professional. He just epitomizes Vulcanness in such a way that is obviously related to Spock, but distinct in its own way. It's like he just stepped off the set of Journey to Babel. He absolutely is giving it his all. He's not phoning it in like it's just another job or whatever. It's like, no, I am playing the role of Sarek and I'm invested in this character, and you can tell that he cares. And I don't know. I always wonder if there was some degree of we didn't get to do this on the live action show, so I'm kind of glad that we're getting to do it in TOS. I wonder if that played into it, if he was more invested in the role because of it. But I don't know. He just knocks it out of the park every way. It's a little bit sad that we didn't get Jane Wyatt to reprise her role as Amanda, because I do really like their interplay together. And the Sarek Amanda relationship is a bit more downplayed here, obviously because of the focus on Spock. But I don't know. Major does all right with what little Amanda has to do in this episode.
Yeah. I was going to give a quick shout out to the animators, because they somehow, having a budget for just blinking, managed to evoke sadness out of Amanda. There's a little sadness at the fact that Spock embraces only the Vulcan way.
I think it's
they have
role,
that.
which is
The eye just kind of closes for a brief moment. I'm like, oh, nice. But your worst moment.
You condemned yourself to emotional turmoil. Great. I'll have to fix this later. Worst moment. I hate to do this, but I have to say Eddie's time that a child opened their mouth. We live in an era in which child actors are really good, right? We live in an era where Stranger Things, those child actors were monumental right out of the gate. And it's they had your occasional really good child actors in the past, I think it was oh god,
Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
We brought him up. I've been binge watching Andy Griffith. He's actually a really good child actor. He brought a lot to the show. So
yeah.
They were on
Baylock.
a budget. They literally just pulled up outside of schools hey kid, you want to be in Star Trek? Yeah. And then
I got lollipops.
get in this van.
Starship,
the recording man.
Of course.
But yeah, no, every line reading was just oof. And I get it. I get that there is an argument to be made for you want to cast a kid instead of having a woman doing a boy's voice, because obviously but at some point it's you listen back to what that performance sounds like, you're like, okay, this is killing the vibe, change it. I don't care if this is the Neckwood executive's kid. Just get them the fuck out of the studio and get a proper voice actor, because it's just not good. The voice performances were just not good for any of the children.
I like the kid. I thought he was fine. He sounded like a British person doing an American accent. He was overpronouncing everything. I am going to go use my Vulcan Nerf pinch now.
So the young actor's name, because we're doxing him now. He was
Tommy
Billy
Lee
Simpson.
Jones.
Billy Simpson, who I don't think he did a lot of things.
That is such a
shocked.
60s
Simpson.
kid named Billy Simpson.
I
know.
He was in about 10 productions, including Oliver Twist with his singing voice. So hopefully he's better at singing.
I can only imagine what that sounds
acting.
like.
And then
Star
in
Trek the
1970s
Now I want a Vulcan Oliver Twist.
In 1977, he went, you know what? I'm too good at this. It's time to retire. But also, how about you?
What a run.
Best moments.
We're already longer than the episode itself. So best, the paintings, all the scenery, all the set stuff, really, really great. They even black out the characters so you don't get distracted. Just look at the great work they did. Worst is, I'll piggyback. It was the voice acting because, like we mentioned, this is a really dense dialogue episode with some like high concepts, especially for kids. And so much of it was delivered really flatly. And I know it's because they focused on the Vulcans and stuff, but we should have gotten a little bit more variety to keep us interested.
I'll have to go with best moment. I love the exploration of Vulcan culture in this. Like, this was really nice. You don't really see it as much as in Amok Time. You get a little bit there, but you get a bit more now, sort of details about their home life and family life, and just a random cousin that can walk up and go, I'm your cousin, and you're like, oh yeah, sure, fuck it, come in.
Well, it's also nice to see like
with him.
a city of the future as well,
Yeah.
right? That's not something we got to see very often
Very
because of the
Jetsons.
constraints of budget. You get to see the Jetsons cars and all the
Yeah.
random skyscrapers and like Vulcan doctors who look like Superman villains. It's great.
Yeah. That just also shows you how Asian Vulcans are. Because a random cousin
here
would
we
just
go.
show up and stay with you. They'll just stay with you for months on end in Asia all the time. Like, someone just sent their cousin, their kid to you to live with you for long periods
Your
of time.
problem
in Asia.
now.
That happens all the time. Yeah.
If I just walk up someone and say, hi, I'm Selleck. Let me in? Okay. Who are you related to? Oh, distant cousin Jimmy. You know Jimmy. He's like, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, Jimmy gets around. You look like you could be one of his kids.
Worst, I'm going to go for the hat trick here and just say that kid's voice acting was atrocious.
I disagree with all three of you. But
apart from that, the episode was actually pretty solid. Like, you can forgive the parts that were, 70s animation and, the long lingering shots of the starship and the non-moving characters, but that's all of Taz, really.
The character fundamentals were incredible, and although I have to bring out Spock's excuse for why he's suddenly turned up at the Sarek household is that he's on his way to the family shrine to honor their gods.
Yeah, that's an odd one. He's not a dealer
Vulcan
in Kivas
gods?
and Trellium.
That's not really a thing.
well, maybe
Is
it's
it?
like the
The
equilateral triangles and like equations are their gods.
You go
Like,
in, there's just like a giant board with all of the
Yeah, 'cause
decimal
they have-
points of pi.
I mean, they're very
it's a
ritualistic.
Pythagorean theorem.
Vulcans are very ritualistic. I mean, if you look at Amok Time, they have a whole society, and even when he's doing the Kolinar in the
Yeah.
motion picture, you've got the giant statues. So there is a form of worship, maybe not in the same kind of religious way, or maybe gods could refer to something
Yeah.
else in that context. But it's a bit.
Yeah, it's just
awful.
interesting to me because it's a part of Vulcan culture that I've never heard referred to before. Like, specifically gods, like rituals, worship, absolutely, but like gods specifically was what kind of caught my eyes. That's a bit weird, but maybe that's a thing they decided not to, to dive into later on.
Okay, Stars, give us your rating criteria, please.
Ooh, okay, gentlemen, how many suspiciously fine with being erased from existence Andorian first officers out of 10 would you give this episode?
Who are you starting with?
He was a very Vulcan Andorian, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
Level-headed.
he's like, oh, this is logical.
stoic.
Sure, I'll go with it. That's cool.
Yeah.
An alternate time.
He was like Hammer, really.
Yeah, he kind of was.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah. Who's going first?
Same fate.
Shall you pick?
I'm gonna go with 9. I think this is a 9. This is a high. Like, if you were to just say recommend episodes of Star Trek, any Star Trek to people, this would be on the list of episodes to watch, and it might be the only TAS episode to make that list of must-watch Star Trek episodes. But yeah, this goes hand in hand with Guardian, City on the Edge of Forever, and Journey to Babel. You get those two. This goes right in with them. As you were saying, this completely world builds on TOS. Yeah. So 9. Yeah, it's really well executed. I like the writing. I think the voice acting is subtle and nuanced.
Now this is pod racing, cousin Sally.
Go home, Arthur. How about you, Autumn?
Oh gosh, this is tough. I've seen this episode twice. I liked it better the first time. It like I keep just dense and chewy and plummy and jammy. It's all these words
Are you
just
hungry?
like it's just a little bit. It's like a little.
This
bit
is
too
why I
much.
eat during the shows, Otto.
I think it might have been better if instead of time travel, they just did this like as a flashback story or something. I don't know. However you would swing it. There's just too many concepts floating around. That being said, I do love we're going to teach kids about death thing. Like the moral of the story. I always love the moral of the story in my shows. Hence the Andy Griffith binge recently. So it was good. It just, I don't know, for like, what was it, like a 22, 23-minute show or whatever. It somehow got long in the middle, even with us like joking over it. So it's a good episode of Trek, but yeah, just, I don't know, drug a little bit. I'll go 8.1, viciously fine with being erased from time Andorian first officers out of 10.
Okay, stars.
That's the response. I'll just give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think this is a really solid piece of Star Trek fiction. I'd say it's arguably essential if you want to do a deep dive on Vulcan culture and especially on the character of Spock. Like, it's a really good character profile of him, and that's what I think justifies the time travel angle. Yeah, it muddies the waters a little bit in terms of throwing a lot of high profile concepts at a viewer, especially potentially a child viewer. But it's so much enriched by getting to see that even though, I don't know, it's one of those things where you don't want to see Spock be disassembled and like out of emotional control every episode, because then there's no point, right? It's the Tuvok problem. Oh, we don't know what to write for Tuvok. Just make him lose his emotional control, and that gets boring after a time because it's all you ever do with the character.
No, it doesn't. Tim Russ is great. I would have watched that all the time.
Guess what? Tim Russ is great, but I want to see him get given good Vulcan material. Not always you are going to act as another character in Tuvok's body. But with Spock, they generally they keep that balance really well. And here it's nice to see him in a completely Vulcan element, and passing as completely Vulcan. Sarek doesn't blink an eye at it. He's like, yeah, this is completely. I imagine that probably was a big boost to Spock's ego. And it's just it's interesting to see that pain both times. Just the raw childhood pain, and then that pain of, I know I got over this. It's going to hurt for a while longer, but it was an essential part of what made me me. And it was nice to see him giving comfort to Aichaya in their final moments. It's like there's a softness and a tenderness there that is kind of essential to Spock's character. That Spock should be a bit of a jackass, especially to McCoy, but he should essentially be a good-hearted person. I really like that. Guess what? DC Fontana got that. DC Fontana fucking nailed that. So yeah, I'd give it an 8.5. Suspiciously fine with being erased from existence. Andorian first officers out of 10. What about you, Idle?
I think 8.5 as well. This was, like Auto says, this was juicy and meaty and scrumptious and tasty. This was full of everything you want from a Star Trek episode, but it didn't feel like it was too much, or, well, at least not to me. There was a hint of here's some time travel, here's some family dynamics, here's multiverse, and here's putting a pet down. Maybe that part was what I'd lose points for, maybe just because it could have spent a bit more time explaining some of those parts, but instead they did the better thing and focused more on the emotional context between Spock and young Selleck and Spock, if you want to call him in that context, and his exploring the Vulcan culture, which was great. I mean, maybe they could have done that another way, but adding the time travel twist was a nice little throw to sort of oh, hey, you remember this? We just want to draw it again because we love the Guardian of Forever. But and yeah, the less said about the child's acting is probably what bumps it down a point. But yeah, okay. A solid 8.5. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, really good.
Guess what? If TAS was like this every episode, I would say fuck TOS, watch TAS instead. Arguably, I can think of at least 20 or 30 TOS episodes that this is better than, in terms of emotional content and dramatization and how much advantage it takes of the medium. It's really, really good.
Yeah, but you got to enjoy the stupid ROMs too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But it's that thing of what are you in the mood for? Are you in the mood for big 60s camp, or are you in the mood for a really thoughtful, interesting character piece with lots of world building? So you want both. You want both flavors. That's why Star Trek is so good. But sometimes you want one or the other.
I think this is a surprise for us watching the animated shows because like a lot of the other TAS episodes are very much more like campy. What can we do with animation? And it just goes balls to the walls crazy. Where this was definitely a lot more focused, and I think that's DC Fontana's hand.
What if we cut a man into 4 parts and have him float around, and then make him a commander in the Federation? Brilliant! Let's do that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Signed,
No, this
sealed,
is
printed, delivered.
This is definitely on the more gravitas. This is the inner light of TAS.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely. All right, thank you everyone for watching. That was our review of Yesteryear. We'll be back.
Code of Honor, 9.9 out of 10. Yes.
Oh God, terrible.
Do you want me to put that in? Do you really want me to put that in the sheet? I will. Just to upset the ratings.
That'll bring up the TNG season average by like a full point if we do that.
Don't worry, I'll keep on penalizing it harder.
Yeah, I'm just gonna I'm gonna trash another episode now. Heart of Glory, I'll trash that instead. Okay, thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Live long and prosper, and enjoy some of the other fine content on our channel. Bye.